brand new series that just premiered about a week ago, Watchmen. If you know anything about Watchmen, it is one of the most famous graphic novels of all time. It is widely regarded as one of the most significant and mature stories that it's ever been developed. When it came out, it was really sort of a trailblazing graphic novel that sort of questioned the whole idea of superheroes and what they meant to society,
right.
And just again how mature of a piece of work it was. People just weren't used to that because like comic books have often had this stigma of just being silly and for kids, fantasy, right? Like, but Watchmen was like, no, like, no, this can be very mature. This can be adult oriented. We can have some very serious and heavy topics be a part of this. If you've not read that graphic novel, highly encourage it.
Yes.
But this new series just debuted again on HBO. It's been created by Damon Lindelof, who's famous for like Lost. He was involved with like,
and The Leftovers.
Yeah, and The Leftovers. Yeah,
which Regina King also came from.
And it has an all-star cast, like you mentioned, Regina King, Don Johnston, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, which he's doing great work.
He's like become my favorite.
Yeah, he's really cool. Jeremy Irons. Again, a stat cast, but the series, it's not an adaptation of the original comic, but it does take place in the same sort of storyline in this alternative world. It's almost like a successor to the original graphic novel.
For sure.
Right?
Even like we're gonna build a similar world, but switch up a lot of the different variables, right?
Yeah.
So Watchmen, again, is a DC comic published as a single volume, right, in 1986, and it became a single volume in 87. Written by Alan Moore. The story was written as a means to reflect the satirical nature of the superhero concept, right? The concept also had superheroes emerge in the 1940s and the 1960s, and the event that their presence helped win Vietnam for the United States, and that the Watergate scandal was never exposed.
So basically the whole storyline of like what actually happened with history just got this is a different sort of timeline.
It's a different timeline we're working with.
Events are like major historical events. There are different outcomes. It's almost like a what if sort of scenario.
Yeah, man. And does this show just start off as like the blackest thing?
Oh, what a bang! Instantly, it's like the first 5 minutes of the show. Like we're going in a direction that I have literally never seen like done on TV before. Like when it opened. Okay, so hold on. Before we get into it, if you've not seen episode 1 of the new TV series, we are going to dive into some spoilers for that episode. Watch it as soon as possible.
ASAP.
Like now, if you can. Like you can literally, I will give you permission to stop listening to us to go watch Watchmen. It's very, very, very good. Like you don't want to miss out on this. But just like as a heads up, we're gonna dive into some spoilers. It's been out for like 8 days at this point, so we gotta unpack some of the things that happened in the series premiere and talk about it. So that's your warning. If you don't want to listen, turn off now. Man, that first sequence, those first 5 minutes, I remember vividly like watching it, and like something else had my attention like for a split second, and then on the screen I saw 1921 Tulsa, Oklahoma.
I said,
flash
here we
over.
go.
And once I saw that, I was like, wait a second.
I said, here we go.
Is this what I think it is? And it was. Like, we're talking about the Black Wall Street Massacre of 1921, which a lot of people just don't know about, right?
I'm about to give him some context, man.
Give it to him, man. Let him hear what this is about.
So from 1889 to 1907, again, this is a period where African Americans were already free, I'm putting that in quotes, already free from slavery. In 1907, Oklahoma became a state. So again, 1889, all the way up to 1907. Many African Americans were rushing the lands of Oklahoma, right, in hopes that this would become a place where a majority black population would serve as a firewall against Jim Crow. There were many Native Americans there, but many of the African Americans were either related to the respective tribes that were there or were adopted by the tribes post-Emancipation Proclamation. So they were able to live as free as they wanted. So no boundaries, no Jim Crow, right?
Right.
So move some years forward, and the Greenwood District, Tulsa, Oklahoma, is now a booming town, right? Although this is one city, many people said it was two cities, right? The white residents of Tulsa referred to this area north of Frisco Railroad tracks as Little Africa.
That's actually very important. Like,
imagine all these white people calling this say like it's not the hood, but you know what I mean, like calling the hood Little Africa.
Yeah.
And although I'm sure that's supposed to be racist, it kind of sounds cool to me. Like, Little Africa, like, oh, that's cool. I want to go there.
Like,
Little Africa
let me
in the United States.
Yeah, let me pull up.
Yeah, I'm pulling up a Little Africa. So this Little Africa, soon to be referred as Black Wall Street, also known, I believe Carter G. Woodson called it Negro Wall Street, too.
Yeah.
Was one of the most commercially successful and affluent African American communities in the United States.
Now wait, let's make sure they understand that.
Again, Black Wall Street was one of the most commercially successful and affluent African American communities in the United States. Just wealth.
It was
just crazy.
I learned about that piece in particular not until I almost graduated college.
No, that's real though.
Was when I literally the first time I had ever heard about it, and that was what pulled me in, the fact that it was one of the most commercially viable and successful pieces of just black owned property or you know, whatever you want to sort of contextualize it as. And when I heard that, I was like, so wait, what happened? Like, where is it? Why are we not there right now? Like, what are we doing?
I'm about to tell you why we ain't there right now. So at this time in the city, mining and oil were booming, right? And this is an instance where people argue that racial segregation was good. Like historians, namely black historians, a lot of times would be like, no, segregation is good, right? No, Martin Luther King, we want segregation.
Yeah, there's actually some benefits.
And this was the town that exhibited why we think this was a good idea, right? And they believed that the segregation was good for the people of Black Wall Street because they were allowed to gain and spend their own money, particularly in places where it was going to black-owned businesses, right?
Feeding the community.
So a lot of people don't know is particularly the Jewish community, right? And the Hispanic community. A lot of times they thrive more than people realize. Because they're recycling their dollars back into their own businesses.
Exactly. Like all of the money is feeding into itself. Like the customers are of that community.
Exactly.
The people who own those businesses are of that community. And then you establish just generational sort of, you know, passing down this sort of entity that's owned and operated by the people that operate and exist within that community.
Exactly. And that's why a lot of people, you know, will argue today buy black because we're trying to extend the time and the value of the black dollar.
Right.
Right. So again, Black Wall Street, thriving, doing amazing, black owned businesses. Everyone is, I don't know, everything is decent, right? Everything's really good.
Yeah.
So now we have, here we come, May 30th, 1921.
That's where it gets dark.
So a young African-American man named Dick Rowland was on his way to a restroom that only African-Americans could use, right? Whites only, blacks only. And a young white lady named Sarah Page was on the same elevator as him. The story goes that this girl, Sarah Page, after the elevator opened, screamed rape when they got off the elevator and just ran off.
Wow.
Claiming that Dick Rowland, this young black man, assaulted her. What?
Wow.
It's Emmett Till before Emmett Till.
It echoes like a very, very similar story, tragic story that we've heard.
Crying wolf when nothing had happened.
In history,
Crazy, man. So this made local news and really, really, really quick. And the headlines enraged all the white people, right? Like all the white people seeing these headlines. One headline came out, racist newspaper was like, we gonna lynch a Negro today or something like that. So the white people rolled to the Tulsa town hall and demanded that the black boy, Rowland, demanded to be lynched. But what happened was, let me get a little Ebonics here. So the black people rolled up deep. Like, they seen all these white people coming to town hall.
They were like, hold on.
And they was like, hold on. First of all, you're not going to touch our little black boy, right?
Yeah.
And so both sides, when they came to town hall, they both came with guns.
Yeah.
Black people had guns and the white people
There was
going to
be some violence.
So there was this white man antagonizing this other black man, was like, I'm pretty sure he was calling them all kind of N-words, right? He was probably like, blah, 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 N-word, give me your gun. And this is literally what happened. The black man was like, no.
Yeah, like, that's not happening.
He's like, no, that's not happening.
We're not doing that.
And what's crazy is all hell broke loose. So my source material doesn't exactly say this right, but I'm pretty sure like the white man probably like tried to yank it from him, right? Or something, and the black man probably
I'm sure it got physical.
And then some elbow or something happened, and that is when all hell broke loose.
Yeah.
And this is May 31st, 1921, in which the show Watchmen begins.
That's where we're coming at, like at the beginning of the show. Like, again, this is never, to my knowledge, I could be very wrong about this, but in mainstream media, I've never seen this historical real life incident portrayed on screen,
right,
as it happened, especially because a lot of people are unaware of this significant event and turning point in history. And for Watchmen, a graphic novel, a comic book,
right,
now a TV show on HBO, to literally start the show off this way, I mean, talk about an emotional gut punch just from the beginning. I mean, it was the most compelling thing that I've seen, and from that moment on, my eyes were glued to the TV, and I instantly knew after that first 5-minute sequence was over, where we start to really get into the story, I knew instantly I was going to go back and rewatch that episode as soon as possible. And I rewatched it the very next day. But that's when I knew, like, this is different. This is going to be something that we've just never seen before.
We've never seen before. And you can tell David Lindelof, his ideas was to put these two worlds together, right? Where Watchmen was making political statements in one way, but he also wanted to reflect the changes in Watchmen as well at the same time as what it would look like in our country if we made some of these same changes, right?
Yeah, I mean, so it presents us with, again, like an alternate sort of history and reality in which there's a white supremacist organization, 7th Cavalry, who, sort of operate in the shadows, and there's this impending fear that basically a race war is going to take place almost, right? And so our main character, Sister Knight, Angela, what's the name? Angela.
I think it's Abram.
Yeah, starred by Regina King. Like she's the leading sort of narrative focus of the show. And we have our character, and so like the first episode, we're sort of uncovering a lot of different plot points and stories. But then by the end of it, after we've like met a majority of the characters, like it ends with like a really sort of shocking. I mean, shocking if you're not familiar with Watchmen, but I think if you know Watchmen, you could sort of see where it was going. But one of the major characters, Don Johnson's character, he's dead by the end of the episode because he's essentially lynched by
he definitely got lynched.
The young boy who was in Tulsa, Oklahoma when that massacre occurred, right? And so it'll get into episode 2 as to like why that happened and like what was the reasoning for why he lynched this main character who was we perceived him to be a good guy. He's not a part of the, at least when we met him, he was not a part of the white supremacist.
We don't know what's going on.
Yeah, so
it's actually we have no idea what's happening.
But I mean, like, let's talk about just like how the show was executed.
Yeah,
some of the different themes, just like, after you sort of break down the historical context of like what we know with what happened in Tulsa, and then actually what this reality is like. What do we think about the actual quality of the show and just like how everything played out?
This is easily something I've never seen before, right? Like I keep telling people, this is the best show on TV.
It really might. It might be.
People who know me know I'm like the biggest Game of Thrones fan ever. But it's over, right?
Yeah.
We know it ended how it ended. Whatever. It's still like my favorite show ever.
Yeah.
Watchmen has taken the place. Like that's what I want to watch on Sundays now. I'm like, where's Watchmen?
Yeah.
Usually I'm like, where's Game of Thrones? Then I'm like, no, where's Watchmen? Because Watchmen has the action.
Yep.
It has. You're learning about these characters, which is so sad that you get this character taken away so fast, right? Because you see him and Regina King's character. Instantly, you're like, man, I love them together.
They have a genuine friendship.
Yeah, you're like, I really, really love them together.
Yeah, it's so much good stuff that's in that first episode. They pack in a lot within an hour. I mean, you not only talk about the historical context, you talk about the racial implications that exist. I mean, there's that sequence with the police officer and the member. We find out he's a member of the 7th Cavalry. Like, just how that whole thing played out. It was tension that was built up. I mean, just scene after scene. You're not 100% sure of what's happening. Like, you have an idea, but they're not giving you all the answers up front, right? Like, this is definitely something that you have to follow to continue to weave together just, what the pieces of the story are. But you're still compelled by everything that's happening because you're really getting to know these characters and how they relate to one another. And just the world that's already been created. It's fascinating because it's really like, damn, what would this be like if things were this way?
Right. It's just so interesting being black watching the show, right? Like, even the first scene after the Tulsa massacre, right? This black police officer pulls over a, I guess, suspicious white man, right?
Yeah.
And apparently, in this world, you have to get, as a police officer, your gun must be dispatched.
Yeah.
You don't have your gun on you when you walk up to the car, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to sit down, go back to your police car, sit down, call the dispatcher. Can I please take out my gun? He goes through certain protocols and asks you like 5 different questions.
Yes, permission.
In order for you to release your gun.
And they're also masked.
And they're masked.
Right.
Like all the police officers are masked, particularly after this incident called the White Night, where the 7th Cavalry attempted to murder all these police officers. Yeah. So now from here on out, all these police officers have to wear masks so people don't know who you are, and they can't just invade your house. So this police officer again he suspects this white man in this car to be part of the 7th Cavalry. I forgot what he seen in the car. He seen something.
Well, he just in the back of the pickup, he just saw there was a tarp that was covering something, and he suspected that this guy driving this truck had weapons. He suspected that he was carrying like firearms, and like you mentioned, he suspected that he was a member of the 7th Cavalry. So in his mind, he's like, I need to be preventative and like get to this guy. And then after that sequence like plays out the way it does, he tries to get permission to dispatch his gun. It jams.
Yep. And when it finally gets dispatched,
it's too late.
And he's already being shot. By the man who was pursuing in the vehicle.
And then he throws the lettuce at him because that's what he told him.
That's what he told him that he had
in the.
That scene by itself is so powerful to me because this black cop had a real probable cause to actually get his gun, real legit probable cause to actually get his gun. And in this world where you would think that we would be excited, right? Yeah. That people or that cops have to get their gun dispatched for all the right reasons.
It turns it on
its head.
When he saw the Rorschach mask, which is like symbolism for like these members of the cavalry, right? And so like you said, he definitely had probable cause. He was of the belief like, this guy might be trouble, so I want to be preventative and stop this. But like you mentioned, it plays with those emotions like. It's crazy. Like
you can write a thesis on that.
Yeah, it's crazy how you feel after because it's role reversal.
It's role reversal.
We're typically used to, and like you mentioned, like he has to get permission to have his weapon. Like that's actually a good thing. That's a good thing to implement. Sense. However, that cost him his life.
It cost him his life,
right? And
which is the opposite because that's so crazy.
That's not the desired outcome by any stretch.
That is insane, man.
So it's moments like that in this first episode that just it makes you just go wow. Like this is really crazy what they're doing, and so. I'm just, really excited to see where the show goes. Episode 2 came on, as we're recording this, it came on last night.
Still wild.
Still a really excellent show. It's just everything about it is well done. It's well filmed. The acting is impeccable, and just where it's gonna go, I just feel like it's so many different directions that we're not even aware of just like how many different territories that it could potentially explore and what else they might bring into it. But already so far they've done so much good work.
Yeah, what I really like about this is that Dave Lindelof, right? I love the Easter eggs in the show, right?
Yeah,
because the Easter eggs aren't there necessarily to tell you that this TV show is like Watchmen. The Easter eggs are actually there to tell you how different this TV show is going to be.
Intentionally different.
From Watchmen. Like they'll give a couple nods to the smiley face, right? To like, or specifically, we watch, who was it? Somebody cracked some eggs open and made a smiley face. Yeah. And to me, that was like, we're cracking open a new story, right? Like this is not the Watchmen that the comic book is about, which is why I am continuously to encourage people to watch the show because it technically almost has nothing to do with the original, except there's some building blocks, right? Some world building, but he's purposely given these subtleties to tell you that this TV show is different. Even the big Easter egg at the very end, right, with the blood drop. Yep. That is different.
Yeah, it's different. But it still pays homage to the original graphic novel. But
although you haven't seen it,
and you don't. If you're sort of hesitant about watching this because you might not have read the graphic novel or whatever it may be, I would encourage you to still watch it because you don't necessarily need that. Like it's not. it's of the same spirit as the original graphic novel,
Yeah.
and it's somewhat set in the same universe, but I think it's probably best described as like a spiritual successor. Like it maintains the essence of what Watchmen is, but it's just a brand new original story.
It's so good.
So
I did want to point out that at the in the first scene, or the Tulsa Massacre scene that we talk about, they were able to convey anti-black racism without the utterance of the N-word one time.
Well,
how many people can do that?
Not Quentin Tarantino.
Not Quentin Tarantino.
So we could definitely convey the point of what that looks like without having to include that one word 200 plus times in your movie. Correct. Right? So they pulled that off successfully. They did it really well.
Just amazing.
And I think that they handled it with care. I just want to make a quick correction. It's Damon Lindelof, not Dave. I know we've been calling him Dave. Sorry to that man. It's Damon Lindelof.
Sorry to that man
who is the creator of this TV show. It's been great so far. Again, if you've not watched Watchmen on HBO, get on it. Don't fall too far behind. You definitely want to be a part of this conversation. I know they talked about that it might be a limited series, like it might just be this season, but I can't imagine. I can't imagine.
Not the way it's going.
Stop. No.
Not the way it's going right now.
It's and if it continues to be as successful as it has been, they're gonna have to do more. It drew 1.5 million viewers on the first night, which is one of the most successful debuts for an HBO series ever.
That's
right?
crazy.
So people are watching and talking about it, right? And it's received like universal acclaim from critics. One thing that I did find interesting, I was just looking on Rotten Tomatoes as we were doing our research. Rotten Tomatoes has critic scores and it has audience scores, right? The critic score comes from people who are published critics, and then your audience score, this is people who are, verified watchers of whatever they're reviewing, but they just submit their own opinion. 98% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics, which again, sensational signifies universal acclaim. However, the audience score is 43%. What I want to ask you is, initially, without necessarily knowing the context of like why people feel this way, why is it 43% and not like 90 something? Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think it's sitting so low on the audience score side?
I'm not as nice. What the hell wrong with y'all?
43% is actually, that's like egregious almost at how low it is. It's interesting because I read some of those reviews, and I think what I consistently saw was, oh, it's too woke. Oh
my God.
Why are we turning Watchmen into this? This isn't Watchmen.
Yeah, this is exactly what Watchmen is.
This isn't what it's supposed to be. This isn't the graphic novel that I read.
Somebody was like, I can't find myself liking any of the characters.
Yeah.
I like all of the characters.
They also like, I saw several times with, this is just, your opinion is your opinion, but this is just kind of ridiculous to me. Like, people commented that the writing was bad. Like, just
you're entitled to your wrong opinion.
Yeah, right. Because that's not it. That's really not it.
You are entitled to your wrong opinion.
But that is what it is. I don't think that that's going to stop this show from being successful. So, again, if you've not watched it, get on it ASAP and let us know what you think about it. Clearly, we love the show. We're going to definitely be continuing to watch it, and I'm sure we'll bring it back up again on future episodes of Two Black Nerds. But if you've checked out episodes 1 and 2 of Watchmen, hit us up on social, and let us know what you think at Two Black Nerds. Share your thoughts. Every Sunday we're going to be watching and sort of live tweeting the situation. So
yeah, because there's something about episode 2 that I really want to talk to y'all about. There's actually 2 things.
There's a couple
two things in season 2 that I really want to talk to y'all about. Man.
So definitely let us know, man. So Watchmen is making airwaves. It's really popular right now, and that's it for that.